Oh, Lara, I adore you. She and I are new friends, but I feel like I've known her so much longer. We share a passion for writing, for words, for journaling, for reading, for putting our stories onto paper. But she has actually devoted herself to understanding how writing can free us from our scarcity thoughts, from our limiting beliefs, how we can discover what we're actually capable of being and doing through this act of getting it on paper. So I dug into this with her in this episode, and she and I, talk, and she shares what it means to rewrite your story, a story of who you are and how you got here. And if you need to stick with that story, or do you have permission to create a brand new one? And if so, what should that look and feel like? So she shares techniques with us and journal prompts, all kinds of stuff that you can use right now to begin working through this incredibly powerful way of seeing yourself as a character in your own life with agency, with power. As I like to say, nothing happens to you, you happen to it. So Lara has her own coaching and teaching practice where she leads people through this journey. And please look up her book. It's called Author Your Life, where she sets down all of this amazing knowledge. You'll also find her writings at the Wall Street Journal, medium.com, and even Notes from the Universe. Her website is authoryourlifenow.com. And let's go ahead and jump in. Hi, I'm Summer McStravick with flowdreaming.com, and welcome to this series, Scarcity Thinking Sucks, So Do Limiting Beliefs. So let's dissolve your limited thinking, dump those scarcity thoughts, own your power, and get you back on your feet, reaching for the stars. Over the course of these episodes, you'll hear from some really brilliant minds about ways they pinpoint and blow up limiting beliefs in their specific areas of expertise. So come with me on a journey into your mind and heart, and let's see what we can find in these very enlightening conversations. Hey, Lara, how are you?
I'm so good, Summer. I'm so happy to be here.
Good. Well, we have about a half an hour to range our thinking far and wide in the wild, creative paths of whatever. I was trying to be colorful, but I was trying to be creative writing-ish in that, but that didn't really work out. But
I'm there
you get
with
what
you.
I'm saying.
I'm tracking with you. Let's go into that colorful landscape together.
Okay, so speaking of, I think I'm thinking of this because I was just at your website, authoryourlifenow.com, and one of the first things that you have up there for people to see is this fabulous line: "Are you ready to storm the castle of your limitations and set yourself free?" And I'm like, hallelujah, yes, I am. Let me show you how to say yes to the sacred power of your own glittering story. So I want to launch in with that. We're talking about people's inner limitations, those beliefs that don't serve them anymore, the scarcity thinking. And you have a method where you lead people to them and through them. And I want to hear all about that. So start wherever you want to start.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for liking my website text. I always admire your writing. So I'm like, oh, Summer liked it. So that makes me feel good. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah. So, I think everything really comes back to this idea of storytelling and what are the stories that we're telling ourselves. And so many times, like a scarcity mindset or a mindset of fear, or I don't know if I can do that, it all comes down to what story are you telling yourself? And a lot of times we're just telling ourselves the story of we can't, I'm not good enough, it's not meant for me, I'm not supposed to have that, people like me don't have that. The thing is, like it's not necessarily your fault that you think that these stories are true, because a lot of us are fed the stories, we're read the stories, we're given the story when we're really little by other people, and we just think this is the way of the world, this is how it is. And so the power of your story, though, is you can change it at any point. And so I like to tell people, there's the story of what you're writing and you can use the power of writing to begin to open your mind to new possibilities and journal your way into a brighter future. And so you've got that story going on of Summer gets to have a successful business and a loving family, and she lives this amazing life that she just loves. And then there's this, Then there's this sneaky pants old story And the sneaky pants old story, you might not even know is there until you start writing this new story. So my work is to resolve the tension between
Right.
those stories. Let's figure out what the sneaky pants old story is, and let's get you writing the new story and resolve that tension and get you cooking with gas and storm the castle of your limitations and set you
Storm the
free.
castle. I'm thinking how when you're writing a new story, and I know we're just jumping right like head first in for everybody, but when you're let's just woo,
Here we
skip the
go.
small talk. When when you're writing that new story, I I'm at the point where I can feel when I hit a limitation. And the way that I feel it is because I'll have a negative emotion about the thing I just wrote, the thing I just thought, and I'll say Summer has a wonderful family and a wonderful business and she's blah blah blah, and then I'll have a little twinge of something that's like, oh, I feel and that's where it kind of cues me in that I'm actually writing it, but there's another story playing because it's warning me, why are you writing that? That's not true. Is that kind of a different way of describing it?
That is a
The
really
tension
great
point?
way. Yeah, the tension point, exactly. And what's awesome about you is that you've done a lot of work on the awareness front, and you've done the work of being able to say like, I kind of can sense when my when my scared side is like, I don't know if we can do that. When that old story, Summer, when that old story is rearing its head, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I would think so if people are watching this and they're like, but I'm not like Summer. I don't know. I don't know when my old story is rearing its head. Like you're not alone. And discovering that tension point is so much a part of the work. That is awareness. That is the work of awareness. Like we're all hearing that word everywhere. Like there's like 7,000 books at Target right now about awareness. But what does that actually mean? And I like to tell people to pay attention to the things where like like they are feeling as if they are being driven by something else or maybe even not in control. So for example, if like a really common trigger right now, for example, is scrolling, like if you're turning to your phone to escape like constantly, like begin to ask yourself what that's about, because chances are there's an old story that's driving you to your phone. Now me, always have to look at my, I'll just call it overindulgence, Summer. Like I always kind of have to be aware, like, am I putting that, chocolate in my mouth because I want it, or am I putting it in my mouth because I'm trying to push down some emotions that want to come up? Like we all have a million different
Mhm.
things that could be sort of signs that there's a tension point in our story. But having people kind of look at those is a great first step.
Yeah. I remember, and I don't know if you use this in your process, but I remember learning once about a technique where you would write a short story where you were the hero. And the short story is your life. There was a little girl named Summer, and she had a very difficult childhood. Fortunately, she was a genius, and she was able to transcend everything. And I thought it was a really neat exercise to recast because that I think is when I first started getting clued in. Like, when I typically tell people about my childhood, it sucks. And I tell them that because that's the story. What if I were to recast it in my own mind? Like, well, part of it sucked and part of it was absolutely brilliant. Why am I not recasting it on the brilliant side of things? Because I know there was
Mm.
brilliance in there. Is that something you do? Like when you work with people and you start to move through this process? I know you probably have a billion writing techniques for it. So,
Yeah, I always like to tell people there's no wrong way to author your life. So, and some people might be out there saying, well, I already kind of use some journaling techniques like what you described, or they might think I use
mhm.
morning pages, or it's a yes and baby. It's a yes and. Like author your life is a complement to whatever else they're using. What's beautiful about the method that you just described is that you're doing this thing that is called distanced self-talk, or in this case it's distant self-writing. There's a lot of research that tells us that distant self-writing, we'll call it, or journaling, where you kind of remove yourself and you become a character instead of the like, I'm so sad I had a bad childhood and I don't know how to get over it, and right, like that kind of like loop we get in. So instead of that, we're becoming this character. And it's creating a little bit of cognitive distance in our brains that's allowing our brain to look at things from some different perspectives, some elevation, giving us just that bit of distance that allows our brain to be like, oh, I can problem solve around this. Oh, this is okay. Oh, I can look at this. And you can do that. You can be the hero. You can do, like you can be the hero at the end of the story who's looking back and giving advice. You can do that as the hero who's in a situation right now and they just need help and they need to call on their guides. You can do that as like the dark, sort of the dark thing in your heart and be like, what are you? Like, let that sort of darkness speak, almost like the golem
Shadow.
inside of us, right? The shadow, exactly. Like, you can become any character that you want in your story, depending on what you need. So it's really cool.
Okay, so all of us who are creative, like we're like lights are firing all off in our brains right now. And then there's this other person listening and they're like, I'm not creative. I don't write. I couldn't think about a golem. What's a golem? Right? So what do you tell people who are like, I don't know. I'm not a writer. I can't even think creatively. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, do you
Yeah.
help people kind of break through that limitation in their thinking? Because that's what it is. They've decided that they're not, and that's the story they're telling themselves. So
Totally. I mean, you
what do
nailed
you
it. I
have?
mean, I think you kind of answered the question in the best way. Of like,
Sorry. I'll let you talk. But
No, but it's
yeah,
like, really, like, what is that sort? Like, what? You're not creative? Like, we're all, I mean, I think if anybody's watching this summit, probably the number one thing that they're going to get is this idea of like, we're all creative in some way, right? And even if you don't feel like you're creative, you have a story. So the idea is to write out, not just getting stuck in this journaling loop of what happened to us yesterday and what's happening to us today and how do we feel right now, but really put yourself in the future. Act as if the future is happening right now and begin to write about that. And if you're not creative, honey, that is okay. Make a list. I have a client who hates writing. So I've told her, make a list. She loves lists. I'm like, make a list of what happens, right?
yeah. I love
Right?
lists too, I have to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bullet
It's so fun.
points, you know? Mm-hmm.
There's no wrong way. There's no wrong way to do it. The idea is just putting yourself in the writing as if what you want to have happen to you is occurring right now, and writing about that as if it's happening, it's possible, it's like how you're feeling, how you're existing in this new space. I mean, we jumped into this, so maybe I should back up and explain like what
I
we're doing.
Preach it, sister, because like you're talking about putting, taking all of these thoughts about who you want to become, and when you put it on paper, I always call that process anchoring, and I've spoken with somebody else about this too, but you anchor them on something physical and now you're looking at them and they become more real when they're outside of your own brain. It is my experience. So
Yes.
if
Yep. And it's a really good, so it's not only an awesome manifestation technique, but if you're only in this for the science, let me tell you what, it's really good for your brain. It opens up new neural pathways. It's that distant self-talk. It's really also, so I recommend people do it by hand also, because by hand, you're connecting a motor skill with a thought. So then it's more likely to stick. So that's another important part of it. And then what I really recommend that people do is at the end, well, there's a few. So I have an acronym. It's called HAPPE, HAPPE. And this is how you can remember how to do this. It's super easy. So the H is that we're writing by hand. So go old school, get a pen, get a piece of paper. We're doing it by hand. The A is that we're writing as if the thing that we want to have happen to us is already occurring. So that's the A. The first P is that I want you to keep it positive. So instead of writing,
I'm tapping notes. If you hear me tap, I'm like, H is for A is for,
H is for. So the first P is for keeping it positive. So instead of Lara, doesn't eat the Oreos, right? You're going to say Lara fuels herself with healthy food. Because if I say Lara doesn't eat the Oreos, then all my brain hears is Lara and Oreos, and they
Laura.
right? And then the next P is that we're writing in the third person. So we've talked about this, like that we want to write as if we're this hero. We're not using I. We're really trying to get out of that state. Now, if you're if you're in the state when you're this hero, it's okay to say like, you know, it's okay if you use an I statement as the hero, like for example, one of the exercises that I have people do is to have their inner hero write a letter to them. What does your inner hero have to say? Or that hero who's 6 months in the future and knows that it's all going to be okay. What do they write to you? And that inner hero might use I, and that's okay. But since you're writing as that inner hero, we're, it makes it okay. We're not using, what we're trying to do is just get out of that, again, that journaling loop, right? Of unhappiness and feeling stuck. And then the last, sorry.
No, finish that. And then I want to go back to that journaling loop.
Okay. And then the last E is, you're going to love this, Summer, is that we want to infuse this process with lots of emotion. So happy is spelled with an E because we're actually going to close our notebook. We're going to set it aside. We're going to get still, and we're going to use the power of our minds and our emotions to begin to feel and manifest the power of this story. We are going to pretend like we are sitting on the beach. That dream house is here. We're feeling the wind. We're hearing the waves because now we live by the ocean. We're feeling the sun, right? We're experiencing everything with the power of our minds. And that is like the number one way to raise your frequency, raise your energy, change your mindset. Babe, well, you know this, Summer, like pretend like it's real, for heaven's sake. Get into flow.
I know. I'm like, yep. I often say, to people when we're practicing flow dreaming is that I say it's like a novel. You're reading a novel and you're reading the words and you're reading the scene and you're sunk in that scene. You are feeling what the protagonist is feeling, or the hero or the heroine. You're feeling them. You're experiencing it with them. You don't even know where you are anymore because you're in a story somewhere out there. Your eyes are open, but you're not in the room. And so what you're saying is, instead of reading that novel, you're reading something you just wrote about yourself. The story that it's about, not another set of characters, but it's about you. And when you're writing about that you're in that story the same way as if you were reading about someone else.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
You put yourself there. Yes.
Yeah. So all
100%.
You readers, this is your technique.
Exactly.
Mystery, romance, it doesn't matter. This is your technique. Yes. Okay, so let's go back to looping now.
Yes.
And you've mentioned that, gosh, we've been traditionally taught journaling is, dear diary, today, a mouse got in the house, blah, 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 blah. And my teacher yelled at me. And it becomes more of an outpouring of garbage, like, I'm going to get all my crappy stuff out, and not a positive vehicle. And maybe that's why people, don't end up doing it. But you flip that whole thing on its face.
Yeah. Well, I guess I've tried to give people a vehicle because everybody wants journaling. We all know, we've all heard the studies. Journaling is really good for us. Journaling can help us, but there's a way to do it for maximum impact. And I won't say there's a wrong way to do it, but if we're constantly only talking about what's happened to us or what is happening to us, we're not changing our thought patterns. We have something like 30,000 thoughts a day, and 98% of them are the same thoughts that we've already had. So how are we opening ourselves up to new things? This process is part of that. Now, I want to say that if you need to just go to the page and vent, my God, just go to the page and vent. Like, it's okay. Like, I do that too. We've all had those days. Like again, this is a yes and process, but just maybe don't stop there, right? Just go and now write about what you want to have happen to you. So you had a shitty day. Like, okay, now write about what your hero does to change that situation.
I'm thinking about how sometimes, I don't know if you do this, but I'll wake up in a dream, or I'll either wake up in the dream, like lucid dream, or I'll kind of wake up. And I realize, I do not like how I just left things. That what my subconscious was processing was terrible. I'm not going to leave it like that. So I go in and I completely revise the story until I get it to end the way I want. And then I wake up. It's a similar thing.
Wow.
Right? Have you done that?
No, I've never done that. That sounds amazing.
Oh, wow, Lara, you gotta practice this. But
that's amazing.
yeah. Well, I used to have a lot of nightmares. So I realized
Oh.
I didn't like waking up always with, carrying what my
Mm.
subconscious was still trying to process. So I'm like, let me help you out, subconscious. I'm going to figure this one out. But it reminds me of the same thing. Like the dream state where I'm kind of rewriting is the same as if when I'm regurgitating all the crummy things of my day or my life. And then I'm like, okay, so how am I going to rewrite this? How am I going to
Yes.
see this differently?
Yes.
And in so
And what
doing, it cultivates a new person, right? That's the ultimate
heck
goal for
yes.
this?
Yes, heck yes. It cultivates your highest self. And what I mean, that's kind of like me even a woo woo term. I mean, I like that term, but I guess if people are watching this and they feel like they don't really have influence over their lives, this is a way to really begin to exert some freaking influence. That's how I started. I was like, God dang it, I've had enough. Like, I'm ready to be the hero of my own story. I'm ready to be the captain of my ship. Like, this is ridiculous. And I think there's a lot of people out there who don't have a lot of influence, right? They're, you know,
Yeah.
like in a job maybe that they don't love, with a boss who maybe they don't love, or they have this life that maybe feels a little bit like Groundhog's Day, and they're just looking for a way to like crack it open, or even not crack it open, just get one crack of influence. And this is a way to do that. That feels awesome.
Yeah, I don't know why this is coming to me, but I feel like maybe when you transitioned into doing this as your life's work, I bet you wrote the story of this well before you began doing it. That you wrote your way into your current career, your current profession, your current
Oh,
calling,
100%.
right? I mean,
Yes.
like you use the
Yes.
process as the means to actually move into what you've already become,
Yeah. I mean, ironically,
right?
I had to reverse engineer it. Yeah. I had to reverse
Oh,
engineer it because
okay.
well, in
So you didn't.
to a degree,
Okay.
because
Mhm.
I was like, when I first started a while ago, when I first started doing this, I was
Mhm.
just, I came from the world of fiction writing. I came from the world of characters, and I was like, well, I'm going to just pretend that there's this character, Lara, and I'm just going to begin to write her like I
Mm.
wanted, like write about all the great things I wanted to have happen to her and just see what happens. And a year later, I was like, holy crap, this works. And then I had to figure out, like,
Oh
why
my
doesn't
goodness,
this
happened.
work? Yeah. So then,
Mhm.
I mean, that's honestly when I found people like you. I found people like Joe Dispenza. I found research. There's a researcher named Ethan Cross. There's just so much good data about like why this works and how. And then I was like, oh, okay, I get why this worked, but I had to
Yeah.
put it all together. And then once I had that, now of course, like I use it every day. So we're just like, I mean, I use my own process every day. So let's
Yeah.
just go to new levels, right?
Have you ever written anything that is so off the charts for you that you hit that wall of tension? You're like, bam, like, oh, I wrote that I've just sold 14 million copies of my blah blah blah, and you go, and you realize, oh, that's a limitation I just hit. Do you like
Yeah.
do you do that? Do you purposely try to do that?
I purposely try to do that. And I'll tell you what, Summer, it is, I'll tell you when the tension comes. The tension comes when I get the thing and then I want to throw up. And then I have to really like sit in it and be like, oh my God. So for example, I'm going to give you a really like real example of this. My husband and I wanted to take a luxury vacation in a just really like, I don't know. I won't say, I don't know, just luxury vacation that was like not opulent, but just felt like, oh, we were really treating ourselves and we wanted to go somewhere warm, stay in a beautiful place. Like this was our dream. We completely manifested it. It was in my story. Summer, I was feeling all the feels of all the things, and we get it.
Oh.
And he pushes the buy button or the rent button on VRBO, and all of a sudden I'm like, what have we done? What have we done? So
No.
that's a lot of the time where I can like believe it. And then when I get it, boy, do I have to fight some old stories. I have to fight my way
Oh,
through the old stories too. And I'll tell
yeah.
you why, to be able to enjoy it, because otherwise I'm sitting in fear the whole time in this beautiful luxury place, worried
Yeah.
about how's the dog? Oh, we left the dog at home. Oh my God. Are we
Yeah.
like,
What's this
and
going to cost me? That's what I think a lot of people think. What's the real payment for this? Am I going to lose my job for this?
mm,
Am I going to be a poor old lady with no savings because I blew it on that great trip? Am I like there's that I feel like is oftentimes what happens when we get that thing that we've actually created. So it's
yes,
almost
ma'am.
like by diminishing the joy of that thing, it's easier to swallow.
100%. That's such a good way of putting it. By
Uh,
diminishing the joy, it's easier to swallow. Yeah,
yeah,
it's more comfortable. We clearly like hit an upper limit, and now we're trying to bring ourselves back down to comfort land. And
yeah.
nope, no,
Ooh, I
ma'am.
want to write all about Comfortland. Do you have a
Comfort
journal prompt
land,
for that? Yeah.
comfort land. Yes, please write that book
What's
so I can
in
read it.
what's in Comfortland, Summer? Like, well, all the stuff that I know I can do and nothing more. And that's it. The end. It's the place where everything gets deadly dull and never goes anywhere new.
Yeah.
But it's
So
comfortable.
that since you asked that question, and since you're talking about comfort land for yourself, do you feel like when you write on the page, can you feel that tension when you're like, Summer jumps into new things and she tries new things? Can you feel that when you're writing it?
Yeah. I have a technique I call the what if list. And
Mm,
it's a very freeing process where I write what ifs about my life. And I'm telling myself, take all of the restrictions off, baby. What if? What if you become the princess of the world? What if what if, what if, what if? And when I write it, because I'm allowing myself to know that it's kind of not real, I'm able to kind of jump over that wall of limits that would normally cap me. You can't write that. That's never going to happen. So I go way high with it. And sometimes there's like regular stuff, like what if I lose 10 pounds this year without even trying? Like, what if? But then I look back on these what if lists and I start to check them and say, that one happened. How did that
yeah.
happen? I had no idea that was even happening. But I feel like I seeded it in the universe at that point. The moment I wrote it on paper, it's like the world
Mm,
said, what if? Well, we can make that happen. And it does. So yeah, I've definitely felt that tension as I write things down, especially when I write something down that has a lot of frustration around it. Like what if
mm,
I or I don't know, I'm thinking something like that I've wanted for a long time that's just never happened. So I write it down with almost this backlog of grueling, frustrated, like I'm going to
mm.
write it down, Lara, because you told me to, but really it's never going to happen because it never actually has happened. Like that's more what I experience. I
Mm.
imagine you do, or your students do too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that that's really like if we have a dream that's been deferred or, a dream that's a long time coming, it can be hard to
Yeah.
continue to believe for it. It can be, what is the Bible verse? Weary and well doing is, I think, one of the ways that it's phrased. And I think that's so maybe the thing I always encourage people is like, can you go like a level up? Like, can you go like a perspective up or go a little bit upstream? So maybe it's that like, maybe your story is less that you like the dream like comes to you. And maybe it's more like just that you can hold on to it, just that you can continue to believe that
Mm.
summer's heart is seeded with hope that blooms in the right season. Summer's heart is filled
Oh,
with, just hope
that's
and
poetry.
confidence and just
Yeah.
stuff like that. Just to hold on to the dream because we do get weary in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love how you infuse personal growth with writing. I mean, just I'm a writer, so it's one of my preferred ways of doing things. And I hope people who are listening right now and watching, they start to think, well, what if I infuse a little more writing into my personal growth, into
Yeah.
my morning ritual or my weekend self care? Um, and I know that we didn't really talk into this, but I know that you have created actual systems that people can use. You don't have to like reinvent the wheel. Lara's got the wheel. So, um, and share with me a little bit about that. I know you've got a gift for some people who like could kind of step them into it, like 5 easy steps for achieving your goals and desires through journaling. But what does that lead to, and what does that do?
Yeah, I mean, so what you're talking about is a quick little mini video course that I created. I think each video is something like 5 minutes long. So it's going to take you 15 minutes to watch all of them. And it's basically going through the process. It's a little bit more about like why it works. And then I go into depth about like the three main things that I wrote that completely transform my story.
Mm-hmm.
And I give those prompts to people so that they can write those things themselves. And it's so much easier than you think. And for anybody who really feels again like this has to be some like, oh, I got to be Hemingway or J.K. Rowling and really be able to write all these amazing stories. No, if all you write is like a few affirmations, Summer loves herself. Summer believes that Summer's heart is filled with hope. Summer knows her business can succeed. Summer is so excited for the abundance that is coming to her. Just
Mm-hmm.
write though, if that's all you do,
Yeah.
it's so good for you. And then close your notebook, put it away, and feel it. Those two things together, unstoppable.
Hmm. I love it. So you take, because I know we've talked like in the kind of grand way about all the like big pieces of what this work is about, but you've broken it down into little bite-sized pieces that somebody can just follow and kind of lead them all the way through. I
Yes.
think that's the most important thing because
Yes.
there is a structure to this, is what I'm trying to say. There is a real
Yes.
structure. You start with A, you go to B, C, D, E, F, G. And that's what you do and that's what you teach. And I just think it's such a fabulous way of finding and breaking limitations and scarcity. And yeah, it's one of my favorites. So,
Oh, well,
all
thank you.
right.
And thank you for teaching me, Summer, because you really did. You taught me about the power of emotion. You taught me about the power of putting yourself into flow. And it made such a difference. So thank you for all your flows because it really took me to that next level. I love your work and it's just a perfect complement to mine. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I know you and I are going to be doing some things together, everybody. So listen, we'll announce them.
Stay
Ooh, got
tuned for a
things.
power
Yeah,
power duo.
got some things happening, cooking. All right, Lara. Well, thank you so much again, everybody. She is at authoryourlifenow.com. If you want to get that gift she's got for you, there's going to be a link. You're either going to find it under this podcast, under this video, however you're consuming it right now. There will be a link to that so you can always get it. Okay. Thank you so much, Lara. Take care.
Thank you, Summer. Take care.